It is time for the caribou to cross the rivers. It is time for the salmon to swim up the current and the rapids while Takara the grizzly catches them with a swat of his paw. It is time for Moko, the great elk, to rule over his herd and breed with the young female Mohawk. They all have to survive, if possible, the merciless winter. Like the others, Abisi the coyote, Tatanka, lord of the bison, and Sako the porcupine also have to surmount the season's obstacles. In the end, they all have to fulfill their destinies, like Mohawk, who is fighting off death even while giving birth. Mohawk, the female elk, has been struggling for hours to give birth to her little one, who refuses to enter the world. Perhaps he is stillborn, or perhaps these are twin fawns, which is unusual for elk and might have caused an intrauterine tragedy. Or maybe the ordeal has just been too much for this young and inexperienced mother. When she began to feel the contractions seizing her belly, Mohawk left the group. She went back to a familiar grove where she felt safe and where she hoped she could give birth in peace and isolation. Mohawk abandons her struggle. Her contractions cease. The baby's head is visible but inert. His body remains trapped inside hers. At this moment, mother and child are at the mercy of any grizzly bear or cougar who might pass by. Suddenly, miraculously, the baby takes a breath. For reasons unknown, he pushes out of his prison. The fawn embraces life. And because he refused it for so long, his name will be Saha, the word for no in the language of the Blackfoot. Mohawk must not waste time. By instinct, she methodically carries out her task, just like her ancestors have done for 5 million years. By eating the leftover placenta, which could restrict the baby's movements, the mother ingests nutrients that will help her regain strength. The fawn's entire body must then be licked clean to eliminate odors that might attract predators or simply arouse their curiosity. Mahawk doesn't want to take any risks. She'll keep licking until the last blade of grass is rid of the smallest drop of blood or amniotic fluid. A 120 million years ago, layers of sediment deposited on a long-forgotten ocean bed rose up to form a rocky bulge 3,000 kilometers long. In the northern part, summits, such as Mount Robson, reached almost 4,000 meters to the sky. The sharp glaciers eroded the sandstone and calcite landscape, cutting and ripping it up to eventually form quartz castles that dominated the eastern prairies. Thus, the Rocky Mountains were born. The Great Spirit then created a bird to fly over them. In her nest, rocked by the wind, a female northern goshawk sits on 3 eggs. The goshawk is a bird of prey similar to the sparrowhawk, a dazzling, intelligent, merciless hunter. A bird made to rule and to kill. "20 meters up in a tree, a couple has constructed a nest with small branches and the twigs of coniferous trees. Sometimes they might steal a nest from a buzzard or a crow. They had occupied this nest before and will again, alternating with others. This nest swapping permits its occupants to escape the mites and fleas who find shelter there. The female doesn't leave except briefly to eat the prey that her mate deposits nearby. She'll brood there for 38 to 40 days, relieved occasionally for an hour or two by the male. By the edge of the water, on a bank where humidity favors the growth of the first spring plants, 2 young grizzlies fill up on the tender grasses. The first is a fair-coated female, whom we will call Odako in reference to her color. Her brother is nearby. Both of them enjoy a root which contains great quantities of proteins, mineral salts, and carbohydrates. This shallow root is one of the favorite foods of the season for the grizzlies, who will only later substitute them with berries and leafy plants. Contrary to common opinion, and despite the fact that grizzlies are omnivorous, plants make up more than 80% of their diet. An adult male, we have named Sick, watches Odako, a young female who doesn't seem interested. She moves away from him. But Sick perseveres. If necessary, he'll follow her wherever she goes, even through forests, across prairies, and into lakes. Suddenly, on the other side of the water, the bachelor finds himself face to face with a younger rival. This, however, doesn't deter him from his pursuit. Surprised by so much agitation, the young suitor, whom we'll call Kate Yatsumi, shows his own interest in the blonde female. He stands up to better observe her, notices Sick, and runs off. Kate Yatsumi thinks he's safe from Sick, who is chasing Odako. But soon they find themselves in the same vicinity. The old suitor must therefore quickly adopt a behavior spectacular enough to discourage this inferior novice, this virgin. the veteran will then display his secret fatal weapon, a formidable swaying action of his bottom, accompanied by the release of pheromones, chemical messages that succeed in impressing the most daring rival. Under the watchful eye of his mother, the moment has come for Saha, the newborn elk, to stand up. This is his first lesson in life, and perhaps the most difficult. The task is too challenging. Saha wants only one thing, to fall back into the amniotic sleep from which he was just rudely awakened. Mahawk helps and encourages her child. Next, she might have to guide him toward her waiting teat, which is too high. Without her help, he might not know how to reach it. Saha has managed to get up, to reach the teat. He is a baby determined to live. Curious and friendly, another doe approaches with interest. Her visit will be brief, as if she were an ambassador simply bringing the mother and child a greeting from the rest of the herd. Everywhere, in the forest as well as the prairie, the plants overflow with a rich and savory sap. For Sako, the porcupine, who temporarily abandons his usual meals of bark and alder, poplar, or willow leaves, it's time for a feast. He need only venture into the forest to find an abundance of grasses, plants with tender flowers, flowers of many kinds, and the most delicious of all, some dandelions. The porcupine, second largest rodent on the continent after the beaver, eats slowly, with the discernment of a fine gourmet. He has a discriminating sense of smell and an excellent memory, and therefore quickly learns to become an unsurpassed botanist. Long ago, before the great extermination of the 19th century, bison ruled the plains. There were 60 million of them. Now, just a tiny fraction of that great nation remains in the parks of Canada and the United States. On this particular day, not far from the banks of the Saskatchewan River, a blazing sun overwhelms the herd. Insects, which proliferate in this season, irritate the animals. They try to get rid of them by rolling on the ground. Tatanka, the large male, has never stopped roaming the great green ocean of the prairie. He knows every mound, every hollow. And like the elk, he always enjoys coming back to roll in the same loose dirt, dust or sand, and rubbing his body against the same trees. They have done so since the beginning of time, since the cycle of growth and drought in the prairies was first set in motion under the conquering sun of the Great West. Not far from the sweltering bison, Itsiaki the beaver has built his dam and his den on a tributary of the Saskatchewan River. Soon, the waters will flow in abundance, fed by the melting snow and ice. The construction worker has dug canals, forming a network that supplies the logging site. But for the moment, due to the low water level, his construction zone looks like a jumbled and inefficient accumulation of beams and building materials. The den that emerges from the water near the dam will soon be dry when it should be almost hidden from view. Within the next few days, Itsiaki must consolidate his structure and make it more watertight. Itsiaki and his mate devote themselves to the task. There are so many branches to transport, sections to insert in the gaps of the dam, mud mixed with grass to fashion into a rainproof sealant. All these tasks must be completed underwater. Luckily, the beaver is well adapted to his environment. Thin, transparent eyelids cover his eyes when he plunges under the surface, so his visual acuity is perfect in all circumstances, and his nostrils and ears close automatically underwater, and his powerful tail acts like a rudder. For Itsiaki, it's of the utmost importance that his stashes of food and the entrances to his den remain submerged, but it will take time to bring this one to the desired height. But soon, before the water swells, his home will be splendid again. "40 days have passed since the female northern goshawk began to brood. During this period, the couple has carefully reinforced the nest and kept it in good condition. Located 20 meters high, it has been weakened by the storms and by the wind that penetrates the forest. Three young goshawks are born. They will stay in the nest for 38 days. 38 days during which time they'll eagerly devour young hares, foal mice, or kinglets offered by their parents. From the tip of her beak, the mother deposits bits of flesh into the gullets of her little ones. Sometimes she must tear apart a whole bird, but she can't do it at the nest. She brings it to a branch or a stump where she can break it up, while the baby birds cry and grow impatient. The bird of prey must return with the meal of the day and serve it up at home. The coyotes are more active after sunset. During his nightly sojourns, Abisi comes upon a dead doe. His first concern is to check whether a wary predator has left behind some trace of scent on his spoils, or might even be lying in wait, ready to pounce on the first animal who falls into the trap. Abisi's fears are not exaggerated. Cougars have been known to wait in the shadows near their prey and kill any coyote who approaches. The coyote therefore watches out for the large feline and is careful not to approach his food. Having made sure the place is safe, Abisi delineates his territory with his own urine and claw marks on the ground. Something stealthily slides down a nearby tree. Abisi hastens to complete his markings. The intruder is none other than the most ferocious denizen of the continent. He is the largest and most powerful member of the weasel species. He is called wolverine or glutton. His arrival immediately disrupts the young coyote's plans for a meal. Stawabi the rattlesnake glides toward his familiar rock fissures. On his way, he will come across a small rodent whose size perfectly suits Stawabi's digestive capacities. The animal, unaware of the danger, will remain throughout this encounter oblivious to the fact that her days are over. Stawabi doesn't move in the hollow of the rock. It's dark. The curious rodent faces him, gets closer to see better, and shows a lot of interest. The snake has pits on each side of his snout that are so sensitive to heat and provide him with thermal vision. He doesn't have to approach his prey to see it better. He coils like a spring, ready to strike. With a single puncture of his jaws, the rattlesnake has injected his venom. He need only calmly wait for the hemotoxic compounds to poison the blood and for the neurotoxins to produce their paralyzing effect on the heart and the lungs. In a few moments, the victim will die of a heart attack. The poisonous night transforms warm blood to cold and offers the dead body of a doe to the wolverine. A young female wolverine has quickly seized the carcass coveted by Abisi the coyote. The latter is cautious, reduced to the rank of spectator. He knows that the most ferocious predator of the continent could overcome animals larger than he by burying his fangs in the nape of the neck and holding on until they die of exhaustion. More scavenger than hunter, the wolverine takes hold of the carcass, which the coyote swiftly abandons. The size of the carcass doesn't discourage the wolverine. She is used to eating large ungulates such as wapiti, caribou, and even young moose when she finds them dead in the underbrush. If necessary, she will drag them to a safe place and feed on the leftovers for several days. Stawabi the rattlesnake can now swallow the dead rodent. He will gulp it down all the more easily because his jaws can detach themselves to open the oral passage wider. The head goes in first, and the prey will be swallowed in the direction of its hair growth. This evening, the eyes of the snake seem opaque, as white as marbles that reflect the moonshine. This is a sign that it will soon be time for him to pass from one age to another. He will shed this scaly skin that is cracking from the pressure of his body. A new dawn presents a world where all horror seems forgotten. On the shore of a lake, a couple of yellow-rumped warblers don't appreciate that a young male moose who has come to quench his thirst so early in the morning is stealing away the flies and wasps that could have made, along with some caterpillars, a very nice breakfast. The moose, tempted by a few aquatic grasses, enters the water and now annoys a ruddy duck. The male duck sports a sky blue beak. Here in their burrow are some prairie dogs who are not really dogs at all, but rather a type of squirrel. They serve as small change, a slightly devalued currency in the great negotiations of life. They are the extras of the great prairie, the nameless crowd who play only a supporting role in this magnificent epic. They serve as snacks to many carnivores. And they do seem to proliferate, but in reality they are in danger of extinction because their habitat is being reduced at the same time as that of the bison. Under the watchful and alert eye of their mother, two youngsters begin play fighting, a manifestation of the extremely social character of the species. While one of them gets in trouble with his mother, soon the whole colony joins in the game, and the prairie becomes an immense playground. Prairie dogs learn to recognize and identify each other's odor by embracing and wrestling, not only during play, but also in social encounters. After the fun and games, they return to the den. One so original that there is no other like it, so well conceived that there is one room for each individual, and so tight that even if the water level rose, an impermeable safe area would still remain. It's May. Springtime asserts itself and intensifies. The first snowmelt increases the flow of the water in the streams and rivers. The earth slowly warms and is finally drawn out of its lethargy. By the edge of the water where they like to hang out, the young blonde grizzly Odako and her brother happily confront each other. They are still at an age where playing games builds character, strengthens their posture so they can stand up, and bolsters their aggressiveness. In this season, when food resources are renewed in abundance, the territory of the solitary grizzly is reduced, and some members of his kin occasionally enter it as if they had already won the battle for the land. Otsimi is a young male smitten with Odako. He is of a mind to start the lovers' season early. That is why at this very moment, the presence of a young brother seems like an obstacle to him. He must get rid of him. Otsimi begins to chase after the young grizzly. He wants to teach him a lesson, to remove any desire he may have to stay close to his sister. Grizzly bears attack the spirit of their adversaries as much as their bodies. They intimidate them and try to frighten them. To better impress them, they stand up on their hind legs. Suddenly, while the two young males attempt to settle their quarrel, the old veteran who has had his eye on young Odako appears on the scene. Otsimi stands up and decides not to pursue a dispute that could awaken the fighting instincts of a stronger and more experienced fighter. Odako's brother, disconcerted but relieved, watches his attacker move away. Meanwhile, he knows that he has lost the battle and that soon he will need to leave his sister and become independent and solitary, like the others of his kind. Order appears to have been restored. Odako goes back to grazing on the tender grasses. Sik, the old grizzly, resumes his blissful contemplation of the young female. Hidden in the grass, Sik is also ready to pounce on Odako's brother if necessary. The youngster raises himself up one last time to consider his enemies before escaping into the forest. Having been fed young magpies and young mammals by their mother, the 3 young goshawks have gradually grown larger, chubbier, and stronger. As she has been doing for the past 20 days, the mother brings prey to the nest. Normally, she would stay in the area, dismember the spoils, and tear them into pieces small enough for the tiny gullet to swallow. But on this day, for the first time, she feeds the meal to her young ones without preparing it. These simple circumstances will show which one of the 3 young ones will most likely be able to survive and forge his own destiny without outside help. While 2 of the birds apparently don't make the connection between the whole prey and the notion of food, the 3rd one, sharper and more cunning, seems to find the situation stimulating. He is interested in the little cadaver. He prods it with his beak and studies it. Some strangers have penetrated the territory. Annoyed, the mother of the birds protests loudly. Unconcerned, the 2 does choose to leave the scene rather than be subjected to this noisy onslaught. The young gosling most fit for survival is a female. We'll call her a babo, a word that means lightning. Soon she'll realize that inside a mass of fur or feathers, one will find warm flesh and blood. She'll understand that she can eat it, and then she'll understand that to do so, she will have to tear strips of flesh from the corpse and swallow them. In this nest deep in the forest, a young goshawk has won a great victory. It's the victory of intelligence when added to instinct, the victory of the strongest and the most cunning, the only thing that matters in the wilds. In the foothills of the mountains near Jasper, the herd of elk that makes up Mahawk's tribe has a visitor today, a solitary male. though the intruder's arrival intrigues them. A long while passes, then they lose interest. Their attention turns again to the buds, the tender grasses, to their normal activities. Mahawk in particular wanders away from the herd as she does several times a day. The young elk's antlers, covered in a layer of skin rich with nourishing blood vessels, are beginning to grow. For a period of 100 days, their growth will release more calcium than the animal could absorb through his diet. All his reserves will be used up. Saha, son of Mahawk, and Moko, the large dominant male, is hidden in the grass, waiting for his mother to return. He will cry out when he gets a whiff of Mahawk's scent. Otherwise, she would not find him. Nature has provided the elk with an amazing system of defense. The babies don't give off any odor, so as not to attract the attention of predators. In fact, it's the mother's scent as she gets close that increases the risk of their being detected. Contact between Saha and his mother is limited to the teat. The rest of the time, the fawn stays in his grassy nest. The elk babies find safety in isolation, whereas the young bison or moose, for example, are never separated from their mothers. Time passes, and its course is made apparent on the increasingly tattered winter coat of the bison, which will eventually fall off as summer approaches. Some males move from one female to another and already detect those that will soon be receptive. A heavy-footed female wanders from the herd to give birth a short distance away under the cover of trees. She has been carrying her baby for almost 9 months. The time for delivery is near. Oki, the unborn baby, weighs roughly 40 kilos. 40 heavy kilos. What follows next is a normal ritual in a world where the weak risk being devoured at any moment. The mother must rid the scene of any betraying evidence, such as the placenta, and get the potential victim, her newborn, to stand up as soon as possible. Meanwhile, further away, the herd carries on their lives as usual. The males open their nostrils wide to better inhale the appealing odor of the females. They roll in the dust to snuff out the parasites. They graze the grasses to the ground. While her little one tries to stand up, the mother bison tends to her duty. She goads him on, so he'll keep trying, holds him up now and then with a reassuring nudge of her muzzle, and guides him toward life. When the time is right, she licks his anus to stimulate the sphincter, to bring on his first bowel movement called meconium, which will set his intestinal functions in motion. Suddenly, an unexplainable jubilation seizes the herd. An excitement spurred on by the insect stings or the sun or who knows what. To finish initiating her child to life because she senses this preliminary agitation, which means the herd will soon take off for better pastures and leave them behind. And indeed, the herd does take off, easily followed by the calves born a couple of days earlier. Oki's mother stays where she is, unable to choose her group, her cohort, her tribe over her little one. It's over. The herd has left. The mother paces around, nervous that a large predator might arrive on the deserted scene with a huge appetite created by a winter diet that will make him devour everything in the whole wide world before summer arrives. Each passing moment widens the distance between the mother and the small group to which she belongs, which protected them. Finally, Oki gathers his courage, focuses his will, and finds the strength to follow his mother and join the herd. The men who lived here first, and to whom these horizons belong, say that one day a big white bison appeared on the plain. A white bison sent by the Great Spirit. From that day on, they've known that no bison is born by chance, but comes as yet another messenger to the sacred land.